this. Yeah. Okay, Celine.
Hello, everybody. I'm Celine. I live in Oregon, and I have a background in mediation and education. And these empathy circles have been inspiring and healing in my life. I'm glad to see y'all.
Thanks, Celine. BJ.
Unmute myself. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. Greetings. I'm BJ Guyton. I'm a mediator here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, specializing in workplace redress mediation, marital and divorce consultant, and facilitation of meetings.
Thanks. And Valerie?
Hi, I'm Valerie. I'm joining from Canada in New Westminster, and I am a mature student at Simon Fraser University in philosophy and psychology, and I'm very interested in continuing to practice my empathy skills so that I can just like make it a part of my practice and my personal life as well as my professional life.
Okay, thanks. So just want to give a little bit of an overview of this meeting. It was previously just an introduction to the Empathy Circle facilitator training. And then since I'm running for Congress as the empathy candidate, I've been making it as an introduction to the campaign. And then we're kind of stepping back and making it more about building an empathy movement. And all those, the training is part of that, the campaign is part of that. So what we wanted to talk about today was, how do we build an empathy movement? And as part of that is the training, which I'm putting the link in there. Bill, do you want to say something about that?
Sure. So as part of the empathy cafes, of which you're in right now, we have empathy cafes on Saturdays and Mondays. And Mondays are the cafes leading up to the training on May 9th, which will occur at 10 a.m. Pacific time in Edwin's Zoom room. And we can put the link up there. So what we will be doing is it's a 5-session course of 2.5 hours each weekly on how to facilitate one of these circles. And so we're going to keep on doing that. We've done it for 2 years. We started at the beginning of the pandemic with doctors in New York who were experiencing the overload, and they found it very helpful. And since then, we've trained over 500 people from all over the world, and we've got very good reviews. And if you join, I think you'll like it too. Thanks.
Yeah, and I put the link into the training website as well as the sign up. There's a link there, and Valerie just signed up just a few minutes ago. And you can just add your name. There's an application in that form too. If you see, you can fill that application out. And then I just posted the links to the trainingbesttraining.com website, and then the Edwin for Congress website. So those links are there. So since we're a small group, we can just have one group today and pretty much just jump into our topic. And let me put the topic in. Is how might we build the empathy movement, or whatever's alive for you? And I've also got a place to take notes. If you're feeling like you like to take notes, if you're a silent listener, you can click on that page and add some notes there to the about the discussion. We're trying to harvest the insights about how do we build the empathy movement. So somebody want to keep time? Just do 5-minute turns, and Larry's got it. Looks like Larry's got it. So I think we're ready. Just everyone's familiar with the practice, so we can just jump right in. Whoever would like to be the first speaker, select your listener, and let's take it away.
Do it first.
Okay.
Okay. BJ, would you like to be my listener, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is in terms of how do we build the empathy movement. I think it's a really deep philosophical question, as well as psychological question, sociological question. I think these are very deep questions that merit a lot of contemplation.
Okay, I think what I heard you say for you, the process of how to build a circle, a culture of empathy for you is really deep, it's psychologically deep, and it has deep meaning for you, is I think what I heard.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's sort of, it has all these different realms to it, in the sense that we live in a very fast-paced world, and yet in order to exercise empathy, I think in terms of building it, is we need to find a way to kind of look at these different areas, kind of slow down and really take the time to contemplate this. It's like as a sort of just a method, the process in itself.
I think what I heard you say is that this whole process is another realm, and it can be fast paced, as like the world is fast paced, and that we should look at different areas, and that would mean slowing down. So in slowing down, maybe the methods would become clearer, I think is what I heard.
Yeah, I think the thing is that we as individuals are very empathic in our nature, and yet we have become dissociated from it because of the way that we are required to survive. And so the what I see is like this survival versus nature, really. That's how I see the two sort of contrasts in building empathy.
Okay, I think what I heard you say is that as individuals, we are empathic, but we can at times disassociate from that belief. And I think what I heard you say is that you see two versions or two realms, and you see survival versus nature. So for you, it's survival versus nature.
Yeah, and I think that these two realms, for instance, we give up our nature because we have to survive. It sort of takes away from empathy because we don't take the time to seriously look at the barriers towards just living in our true nature.
I think what I heard you said, we don't look at barriers that can hinder us from seeing our true self. And we don't look at the barriers that can hinder us from being who we are. And being in survival mode can lead us to that, is what I heard.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's sort of problematic because in one sense, the sort of systems that we live under are very patriarchal. They're very sort of extreme masculine, survival based systems which creates cycles, right? So that's the sort of emphasis on mortality. And what kind of cycle are we going to in the sense of a needs-based cycle of how to get our needs met within this cycle of a lifetime, which really fixates on survival.
Okay, I think what I heard is that you say is that in trying to survive, no, I'm sorry, being problematic, systems are extreme, and systems are masculine in that they create cycles, and there needs to be, the cycle needs to be fixed.
I think that to the way that we end up looking at life as a cycle of survival is it sort of puts us in a means and kind of mental framework, a physiological framework that doesn't allow to relax and just be in the present moment and be present with each other.
Okay, so I think what I heard, the systems don't always allow us to slow down, relax, and be present, and to be engaged in the present. And that another way to look at life is through survival.
Yeah, I think that's a barrier that I see, and so I'm trying to focus right now on sort of like balancing the masculine, feminine, and bringing that into the individual space
Okay.
to open up that open up that sort of possibility of empathy. And I'll stop there.
I think what I heard you say is that in your attempt, in your efforts to focus, there are sometimes barriers, but I think what I hear you saying is that you're doing your best to try to balance those and what that looks like.
And that was time.
Thank you, BJ. I feel very heard.
Right. Larry, will you be my listener?
Yes, BJ. Happy to.
Okay, so culture of empathy. Okay. Okay, what's alive for me right now? Let me just back. How I am using the culture of empathy in my life right now is what I want to talk about.
So BJ, I hear you saying that what's alive in you is how you're using the culture of empathy in your life right now is what you want to talk about now.
Yes, and I am grateful for the empathy training because I've been able to help a friend who she's in hospice and her husband and her children are having a tough time. So I've been able to reflect back to them what I'm hearing them say.
And you're grateful for this empathy training because you've been able to put it to use with a friend who's in hospice and with their I think you said with their family and able to communicate in an empathic way with them.
Yes, because her husband, this is her second husband and her kids are from the first husband. And so there's that conflict there because, when you're in hospice, there are choices. Well, what I'm learning that when you're in hospice, there's decisions that have to be made.
And it's a complicated situation. There are children from a previous marriage. And you're learning that in the hospice situation, there are decisions that need to be made.
All right. So there can be conflict with children and with the husband, whereas everybody know the husband has the final say.
Yeah. So this is complicated with everyone, all the family. It can be very complicated. And the husband has the final say.
Yeah. Well, with empathy listening circles, for me, how I have been using it in my workplace is to help employees terminate family members.
And the way you've been using the empathy circles in your employment is to help family members terminate their relationships, did you say?
Business owners who have family members working for them.
Business owners who have families working for them.
Yes, so we've been able to use empathy circles to facilitate the termination of a family member.
And you've been able to use the empathy circle format to help resolve these relationships and maybe terminate these business relationships with family members.
I think with empathy listening circles, I am overjoyed that Ed is running for his seat.
With the empathy circles, you are overjoyed that it is running for, and I didn't catch the last part.
Ed is running for his congressional seat.
That Edwin is running for.
That Edwin is a candidate.
You're overjoyed that Edwin is the candidate for Congress in his district.
Yes, yes. And I think that once the word get out about the empathy candidate, that it's going to take off.
Mm-hmm. And once the word gets out that he's running with the empathy as the empathy candidate, it's going to take off.
Yes, and the premise, there are so many premises that it could be. I'm just overjoyed.
And there's so many premises that it could be. You're overjoyed.
Yes, I feel heard.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vijay. So Celine, will you be my listener?
Yes, I'm listening.
Thank you, Celine. And I'm overjoyed to hear this conversation and that Edwin is running and that it's going to take off. Yeah, I'm overjoyed. Yeah, I want to see that too.
So you're overjoyed in hearing what BJ has said, this conversation. You're overjoyed that Edwin is running for office and that the empathy movement is going to take off.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed what Valerie was sharing about there's this kind of systemic thing going on that's kind of based on what I wrote down as notes was my cycles of domination that keep leading back to war, that the system has this survival thing going on that is not really our natural peaceful way of being. That there's two different things going on. I'm trying to say that there's a systemic repeating cycle that's survival based, kind of fear based, and yet there's a natural peaceful way that's within us. And those two are like distinct things. That was a lot there, but I'm just trying to reinforce that there's a systemic repeating survival war machine versus our natural peaceful empathic selves and empathy circles. I'm throwing in that last part for fun.
So you're talking about natural cycles. One is the cycle of domination, of survival, what can lead to war, as opposed to our natural cycle of love and kindness and collaboration.
Exactly. I'm kind of naming those two distinct thought systems, maybe, that have been going on, I guess, since civilization began, that there's this cycle of domination, survival of the fittest idea, very patriarchal, like Valerie mentioned. It's patriarchal, it's very dominating, survival based. It's in a war for its victory. And then there's this natural way of being that I would say is a sharing way of being. It doesn't need to compete to succeed. It just shares, and everyone succeeds without a need for war.
So you're seeing two very distinct systems that have been in place, and one in particular since civilization began, which is the patriarchal system of separation and competition, and another system that is our natural sharing, where it's not about competition, it's about helping each other, supporting each other.
Exactly. And in the in the sharing way of being, we don't need to go to war to get to sharing. We just share, and there's no need for the war machine. There's no need for domination. There's no need for conflict or competition. Sharing is like a whole other reality that begins in peace and remains in peace. And somehow we keep getting distracted from that.
So you're looking at what sharing is, and that it's a whole other world, a whole other modality that we are all capable of and do enact, and that it stays in peace. And there's no need for war when there is that generosity of sharing. And it seems that it's not the choice that we all make all the time.
Yeah, if we keep holding on to the past, then there's this idea that there should be we should have some revenge, some kind of a war that balances the table or the scale. But it's all based on the past. It's based on holding on to the past. And that was my time. And thank you, Selena. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Yes, I hear you talk about how when we look at the past and hold on to the past, then we have ideas of revenge, and we forget and abandon sharing.
Thank you, Celine. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, would you listen to me?
Sure, happily.
So I want to celebrate the effects of basically of listening, empathic listening, as I learn to do it within the empathy circle practice.
So you wanted to celebrate the effects of empathic listening within the empathy circle practice.
I am celebrating that there is peace in my family. And my younger son called me to tell me about the peace that he has made with his older brother.
So you're celebrating the effect of peace within your family, and specifically what you're talking about is that one of your sons called to tell you about how he's made peace with his older brother.
Yes. And he thanked me because I really listened to him, and he knows what empathy circles are about. He said, you don't need to reflect. I just want you to listen. And he downloaded the major themes of his life as a younger brother.
So he employed the kind of reflective listening techniques with his older brother. He wanted to tell you about that and how effective. And then he didn't want a reflection at that particular point, but then he shared, his experiences being a younger brother with you.
Right. No, he did not. This is not about anything he did with his older brother. He called me to thank me for having listened to him talk about what it was like being a younger brother to his older brother.
Okay, so rather than talking about it with his older brother, he talked with you about his experience of being a younger brother. You listened reflectively, and that helped him process and be able to approach his older brother.
Exactly. So because I was able to sit there and listen to him, he told me, he then was able to review and revise the material for himself, and as a result, approach his older brother.
Right. So essentially having, speaking with you and hearing your reflection of what he was saying, he was able to revise what he was saying so that he could more effectively communicate with his older brother.
Yes. So on my part, all it took was listening with empathy, meaning care and curiosity and respect. And then he could shift, and I didn't say anything.
Right. So being able to just kind of, hear himself reflected, it enabled him in order to shift his perspective. And so you said, and you didn't really say anything. You didn't give him advice or instructions or judge him, but he was able to make those determinations for himself.
Yes. So for me, empathy is kind of is something really big, and then there are pieces of empathy that can be like listening would be one, and another would be reflecting back, and there are more parts of empathy that I think are all beautiful. Stop there.
Okay. So you see empathy as a very broad category or subject or experience. Among those specifically, there's listening and reflecting, which you talk are two specific things, but there are more than that, and each one is very beautiful.
Yeah. I'm going to stop there. I feel fully heard. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, my pleasure. Sure. Okay. I'll talk to Edwin.
Listening.
Okay. Spreading culture of empathy. Well, I think part of the difficulty is that we are conditioned to label things very quickly. I'll stop there.
So you're seeing, well, you're wanting to talk about building a culture of empathy, and you're seeing a problem that people label things quickly.
Yeah, and that goes back to a lot of people. We talked about survivalist mode, and is this thing going to eat me or should I eat it? So things like that, and we've taken that too far.
So there's sort of these blocks to empathy, like people going into survival mode, that fear, and you're seeing it's gone too far.
Yeah, and it's difficult or a challenge because, as I think Celine just said, it's a very broad thing. Empathy, it encompasses all of our interactions as human beings, but we have to experience it. I think Celine illustrated with her son in that, we would normally, if this was a movie with Celine and her son, she would be giving sage advice and he would be taking it in and things like that. But that's not quite the way it works. But there is something that Celine was doing for her son. I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit long. I can stop here.
It's whatever.
Okay, so there was something that she was doing and she was communicating, but not verbally. And that's it. You're important. I'm here to listen to you and I want to understand you. And that helped him, I believe in my guess is that helped him loosen his concepts and rigid concepts so that he can adjust. Yeah. I'll stop there.
So the what I'm hearing there is the essence is you have to sort of experience the empathy. It's a really broad term. There's a lot to it, but the importance is that you experience it, like Celine empathized with her son, and he experienced it, and you just see there's that sense of listening, that sense of care, that you matter, and that's what kind of opens the door for change to happen.
Right. And that's a long process because we're really conditioned, like in this survivalist mode, man against nature, whereas nature provides everything we need. So, but somehow, there's, it's like we've got to fight, and that's not the case at all.
So seems like a block to empathy is that we're in the survival mode and we have to fight. And it's going to take time to really shift from that mode to a more empathic mode. Yeah,
and one of my mentors said, I was in special ed, she was a counselor, and she said that, I've seen people make, or students make, 1, 2, 3 years of progress in 1 year intellectually, but I've never seen anyone make progress more than 1 year emotionally in 1 calendar year. It's a slow process.
So someone else was just talking, one of the other teachers, about how you can make quick intellectual progress really quickly, but it takes time to make emotional change and grow emotionally. So it sounds like you're saying you have to have that patience maybe to.
Yeah. Patience and persistence.
Patience and persistence is,
Yeah. And then I just wanted to appreciate everyone here and that I've met in the empathy circle, because you're just doing that hard work. And every time I see that, we're not getting rich, certainly, and we're not getting famous. And we're just, but nevertheless, there's incredible courage, I believe, in going forward and doing that patient, persistent work. And then I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, I'm hearing some real gratitude for everyone coming here, because it's not making us rich. We're not getting famous, but we're kind of putting in we have the patience, we have the persistence, and we have the courage. And I'm just hearing real gratitude for you, everyone here, for bringing those qualities.
Thanks. I feel fully heard, Edwin.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Valerie, can I speak to you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's that the thing of how to, I always feel sort of impatient, like I want this to grow faster and faster. I do have patience, I do have persistence, but I also have sort of an impatience, like let's get this going a little faster.
So it sounds like you're saying that you appreciate that this takes time, this process, but there's an eagerness inside you, like you just want to see this thing happen. You just want to feel and see the world just being amazing, because that's what we are. And it's like it's a little bit sometimes causes a little bit impatience, because you
Yeah.
have a vision, you see it, you know it's possible.
Yeah, and that I do see that what's come up is sort of the blocks, the domination, and the fear. I do see that maybe we're naturally wired that when we're afraid, for our survival, we need to go out and fight and defend ourselves, physically. So I can see that we're sort of wired for that, but we are also wired for that empathic nature. And it's how do we create social structures that support more of the empathic nature.
Right. And so what I'm hearing is that you're seeing that the human dynamic in our society is that there is this component of survival and practicality, and we need to get certain basic needs met and how we go about doing that. But then there's also very much this potential in us to be empathic and to be heart-spaced, and then how do we create the social structures to do that?
Yeah, that's why I was sort of stepping back to say, we need a movement. We need to build a movement for this. It's just not everybody doing individually, which is important, having sort of those individual initiatives and working on yourself, but also to think in terms of creating a larger movement that can get this, this message into the centers of the culture.
So you see the importance of at the individual level. It's completely necessary. It can't happen any other way, but that has to be on a more collective level. There has to be some momentum happening there. There has to be a movement that is taking place in order to really make some impact.
Yeah, I felt really tickled by BJ's comment that, if it's going to take time, but that, that this will really resonate with people if they really understand, what we're talking about. It's like, they just have to maybe experience it, they have to see it, and also that it's sort of relevant within the larger cultural context. And that's why I'm running for Congress, is to try to bring it into the centers of power. And then if people see it, it's resonating with other representatives, with other Congress members or whatever, that we kind of say this is just not some peripheral fringe kind of thing. This is like going to the, core, going for the jugular, to speak the cultural jugular vein. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying that you were really tickled by what BJ had to say about it taking time and being a process, but then also that once people experience it, if they're open to it and when they're ready for it, that they actually do see the benefits. They can see that this has incredible impact. So really it is a matter of process, and it's a matter of time, and you appreciate that. And this is why you're thinking, the next level really is political, it's governmental. It is to tap into those systems, the powers that design the systems, because this isn't a fringe movement, this is real. And once they inevitably will begin to see how this can actually work for us as people, rather than the way we've been doing things, that it eventually will take shape.
Yeah, I reached out to the other candidates. There's 5 of us running for this congressional district and I reached out to the other candidates, and 4 of them, including myself, have so far said we're going to do an empathy circle, and we're doing one tomorrow with 2 of the candidates. So we're going to actually model it. And the other one, the Republican, would have taken part, but just couldn't, had some scheduling conflicts. So we're going to try to do some more, over the next week. So I really would like to get all 5 candidates in one circle, but we'll have 3 of us tomorrow.
So what I'm hearing is you're sharing some great news, that you're the candidates, the fellow candidates that are running alongside with you there's 4 out of 5 of you that can make it tomorrow, and you guys are going to do an empathy circle, and one of them happens to be Republican. They can't make it, but eventually you're hoping to get that done. But you're very, very happy and very pleased that this is taking place.
Yeah, there's actually 3 other candidates.
It's a 3 and then you.
Yeah, it's including me. There's 3 of us all together. One person hasn't responded. The establishment candidate who's already in Congress at the moment has not responded, which kind of tells you something about maybe Congress. The other one is a Republican, and he is interested in, but just couldn't schedule it this time. So yeah.
There's 3 of you that are going to be in the empathy circle. There's one who's a Republican who's responded, who just couldn't make it. And then the other one who hasn't responded yet is currently in Congress, part of the establishment, and maybe tells us a little bit about the resistance.
Yes, exactly.
But you're hopeful. You're going to keep going. You're going to make it happen, and you're going to show how the other candidates are behaving.
Yeah, so the campaign is doing the empathy movement, right? The campaign is bringing people together to have these empathy dialogues, and we're going to record it and post it out on the different community Facebook groups. And the topic is how might we bridge political and social divides in our community? So we're going to be talking together about bridging these divides, or whatever's alive for you. So yeah.
So what's really great is the approach that you're going to be taking with the other candidates is this empathy, the way that we do this process. And the topics are going to be politically based in terms of social change. And that's going to be the discussion versus like the usual, like, what jobs, what education, blah, blah, blah. But you're actually going to have this more in-depth empathy-based perspective and have that dialogue, record it and share that. So it's actually happening, and you're showing people that it's happening, and you're demonstrating a different way to do political dialogue in terms of just improving our social situations.
Yeah, just a correction, that it is bridging the political and social divides is the topic. So, and I feel fully heard.
So bridging the political and social divides, which says a lot. Bridging the political and social divide says a lot. Okay. So I'll just pick up on that. Let me see. Larry, would you like to be my listener?
Yes.
Thank you. So just picking up on the last thing that Edwin had said about bridging the political and social divide, I think that's just really sad.
So Valerie, just picking up on the last thing Edwin was sharing, bridging the political and social divide. And then you said, and I think that's and I didn't catch the last word.
Sad. SAD.
SAD.
Yes.
It's very sad to think that we need to bridge the political divide and the social divide. I'm getting that it's sad that there is a divide. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. There was I think, I don't know if I've shared this quote, but someone had asked when Gandhi was doing his peaceful protests in India, someone had asked him, well, like you're this like spiritual guy, spiritual master type of person. What place does spirituality have in politics? And he replied by saying something to the effect of, well, doesn't politics have karma? Right. And it really, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Valerie, I hear you sharing a statement from Gandhi, who was very involved in peace and nonviolence and non-war-like solutions. And someone asked Gandhi, well, what role would spirituality have in politics? And Gandhi's response was, you don't think politicians believe in karma?
Yeah, the idea, I think sometimes with karma, it's very esoteric, and it can be very sort of believed to be sort of religion based, but really karma is just cause effect.
Mm-hmm. Valerie, I hear you sharing that, sometimes the word karma might have some other kinds of connections or beliefs and connections and thoughts of other things, but it's really just about cause and effect.
Right. And then I also wanted to pick up on something Bill was talking about in terms of judgment. That's something that I has sailing into my mind this morning. Just our need for judgment. And then I was tying that in with the cycle of life that we feel that we're bound to. I'll just stop there.
So I'm hearing you say that Bill was talking earlier about a need for judgment and the cycle of life that we're bound to. Did I get that?
Yeah, it's the judgment that so I feel that the reason why we're very judgmental, or we feel like we need to be judgmental as human beings, is because we are psychologically tied in with this cycle of life.
So you're sharing that it seems like the reason we need this judgment, we have a need for judgment, and that we're tied into this cycle of life.
Yeah, it's a very much, I see it very much as a psychological trap, if you will. That this cycle of life is like, we look at it and we say, oh yes, but things are born and then they die, and we sort of just take it for granted that that's reality, and we live in accordance with this birth-death cycle. And so inherent in our being bound to the psychological addiction almost of survival, I think is based in in this bond with the idea that there is such a thing as a birth-death cycle.
Okay, so I'm hearing you share that there's a strong belief in a birth-death cycle, and in that belief of the birth-death cycle, then we have this need to judge and survive in this apparent cycle.
Right, it sort of takes us out of being in the present moment, and it's only in the present moment when we can actually know people. Like right now, we sort of judge people on the cycle. It's like, where on the cycle are you? And it does sort of we do end up judging people in terms of their use, like the means end, like what is your relationship to me within this cycle, which is like very short.
So I'm hearing that because of this belief in this illusion of a birth-death cycle, that while we believe in that, then we also judge others as to where they are on this illusory birth-death cycle. And by doing that kind of merry-go-round thing, we end up not living in the present moment and appreciating what is here and now. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's exactly right, Larry. And I just want to add just one sentence, if I might. I tend to do this, I'm sorry. It's just to tie it together, which is a comment that you had made, Larry, about like for me, it's very much this bond has to do with the past and future. So we are psychologically either in the past or in the future, never in the present moment. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Valerie. So it is that we're caught up in this hamster wheel of time and distracted from the real now.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Valerie. BJ, could I speak to you, please? Would you
Yeah.
be- Thank you. Yeah, that's a lot to look at, right? That's a lot to process. Yeah, that we're caught up in this belief in a past and a future that goes around and round. And that distracts us from simply being here now.
I think what I heard you say is a lot to unpack, and that we're caught up in our past and our future. And that's just going around and around. And focusing on the future is very interesting.
Yeah, if we're not able to just be at peace right now because we're ruminating on the past, trying to get revenge, or we're planning for a future revenge, then we're not really being here in peace now.
I think what you said is not being able to have peace can be difficult when we're thinking about revenge in the future, revenge in the past. It stops you from being in the present.
Mhm. And that's the beauty of the empathy circles. And the empathy circles, to practice, reflecting back what someone's saying, requires being in peace.
I think what I heard you say, the beauty of the empathy circle is to be able to listen effectively and reflect back what you heard, which can create peace.
Yeah, exactly. It naturally opens up the space of peace within participants because they're not planning the rebuttal. They're just listening in peace. I love it.
What you said, you love it because it's natural. And in that it's natural, the person is truly listening because they're not thinking about, okay, what's going to be my comeback? What's going to be my reply? They're actually effectively listening for what is being said so they can effectively restate what they heard.
Yes. So the empathy circle provides a format where a human being can practice letting go of the past, not worrying about the future, simply being here, listening now.
What I heard is that with empathy circles, a person is actually listening to what is being said now, letting go of all past indifferences or whatever the past might look like, and just being present.
Right. And it's in the present moment that could be maybe called the eternal now. To be in the now forever is so peaceful that your natural desire is to simply share the peace.
I think what I heard you say is that being in the present moment is the eternal now. And for you, the eternal now, it's peaceful.
And your natural desire with peace is to share.
Your natural desire for peace is to share.
You don't need to have a battle to get to peace. It's natural. And your natural inclination is to share what is now.
Your natural inclination is to share what is now.
Yeah, we don't have to fight about peace. That would just be ridiculous to have a war to get to peace when you're already there.
I think what I heard you say is conflict and peace do not go hand in hand, and that peace is natural and it's just there.
Yes, exactly. So in the peace, there's no need for conflict.
In the peace, there is no need for conflict.
Thank you, BJ. I feel fully heard. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bill, will you be my listener?
Be happy to, BJ.
We've unpacked a lot. How might we build the empathy movement? When I think about building the empathy movement, I think about the vision, the mission, and the principles.
Okay, so when you're thinking about how to build the empathy movement, you're thinking about the vision, the mission, and the principles.
Yeah, what are those visions, those missions, and those values so that people can be engaged?
Mhm. So then you're considering how to the mission, vision, and principles and values. How can how can you flesh those out? How can you make those real for people?
Absolutely, because if you want to engage people to support the movement, then that's going to entail them knowing what those things are.
Right. So if you really want to engage some people in order to join, you have to make those things concrete and real so they understand what they're joining and where they kind of fit in.
Yeah, and true success would be building the empathy movement by engaging younger people.
And key to engaging or building the empathy movement would be to engaging younger people.
Yes, people who are already successful, who can, because everything is social media now.
Mhm. Right. So it has to be presented on social media. So that's where younger people are placing their attention.
Yes, YouTubers would be a great resource.
Mhm. So YouTube was one resource. Yeah.
YouTubers, those are young people who are professional YouTubers who are getting paid for the number of followers that they have.
Right. So you corrected me, and not YouTube, but YouTubers, people who are doing it.
Yes, yes. So I am truly excited about what I heard Edwin speak on regarding the meeting that he's having with the people who are running mates.
Mm. So you're excited about it, what Edwin's talking about, having an empathy circle with the other candidates who are running for Congress?
Yes, so they are officially giving him their vote, but they don't know it.
So you think that they are officially giving them their vote, but they don't know it.
Yes, and it's genius that it's going to be televised. Well, not televised, so it's going to be on social media so that it can be publicized. That's going to be awesome.
Right. So you think that's really a genius tactic, and it's going to be on social media. So it's awesome.
Yes, so people will get to see what the empathy circle is all about and how it really works. I think that that's going to be great.
Yeah. So people have a chance to see it and at least experience it vicariously through the candidates, and that you think will be very effective.
Yes, because since becoming a facilitator, it has helped me in every area of my life, not just work, professional, business, the people at the grocery store. I mean, having conflicts, it just helps everywhere that you go. So I just can't wait for the world to partake.
Yeah. So your experience in with the empathy circle is that it's really enriched your life or helped you in every personal, professional, just out on the street, and you can't wait for other people to have that same experience.
Yes, and I think for me, the best part is to be able to help those who need it the most. And I would say those would be the firefighters, first responders, police officers, people who are putting their lives on the line for us and they get very little credit.
So one of the places that you feel that the empathy circle would be most effective would be firefighters, first responders, people who put their lives on the line, and they could really benefit.
Yes, just to be heard,
Mhm.
just to be heard.
Just to be heard. Yeah, just to be heard would be a great help to those people.
Yes, because there's so many things that they have to deal with. I recently was in a situation where I came in contact with a police officer and we started talking, and it was totally unrelated, but because I was restating everything that I heard him say, he started to tell me about, well, yeah, 2 weeks ago, I had to walk into this house and find a man that's been in a hot tub for a week, so here he is sharing, because I was doing the empathy listening, he was sharing with me,
Mhm.
That happened 2 weeks ago. He hadn't talked to anybody. I mean, it's just stuff that's being held inside that they need to talk about.
Right. So you were relating a personal experience with a policeman, and you were not, you didn't have an agenda. You weren't telling him or criticizing or judging, but you were just reflecting. And after a little while, he started to share more deeply, and he talked about, walking into a house where this guy had been in a hot tub for 2 weeks, and that wouldn't have happened if you just hadn't been, reflectively listening.
Yes, yes. So my point is that they have a lot of things that they're carrying around with them and they're not able to express it.
Yeah. So a lot of the first responders have a lot of things that they keep inside, and they don't have an outlet to really express it.
Yes, there's nothing like empathy circles in all areas of the life to help.
Yeah. Well, empathy circles can help in many areas of life.
I feel heard.
Okay, PJ, great listening to you. All right, Celine, you listen to me? Yeah, you're muted. Oh, okay. Can you hear me though? You're still muted. Oh, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I want to emphasize what BJ talked about. When we first started the Empathy Circle facilitation training, our first group were doctors, nurses, and medical students in Brooklyn, New York, at the height of the pandemic. I'll stop there.
So you want to emphasize what BJ was just talking about. And you're saying some of your first groups were with doctors, nurses, and other professionals in Brooklyn at the beginning of the pandemic when they were pretty overwhelmed.
Yeah. And, and they are, obviously they didn't have time to say, okay, let's take 2 hours out of our day or a work day for empathy circles. But they did take the facilitation training. And what the comment that stuck with me is that, just 5 minutes of reflective listening at a shift change can make all the difference in the world.
So these folks didn't have time to spend like 2 hours practicing, but they did take part in the facilitation training.
Mhm.
And they reported that just 5 minutes of somebody's listening could make such a difference, have such an impact on somebody's day.
Right. And we could go into the social history of that. I think it goes back to a lot of things that Larry says about a dominant, hierarchy, where essentially doctors and medical personnel just suck it up and, do your job. And, and while in the moment you do have to do that sometimes, it doesn't help overall.
So when you look at kind of the social history, some of the things Larry talks about the dominant hierarchical system, and you look at the medical system where doctors and nurses just have to suck it up and deal with whatever is there. However, it takes its toll.
Yeah, and it doesn't. That gets into a lot of weeds. I guess what I'm trying to come to grips with here is that it seems that what we're doing here is the opposite of what you need to do when you need to react very quickly. And the way, and I worked in a profession where I had to act very quickly. I'll stop there.
So you're contrasting what we're doing here, which is kind of slow and methodical, with what some people on the job need to do, which is to respond quickly to a situation and not sit and talk about it for an hour. Just have to act.
Right, in the moment. But it was very helpful. We had a lot of meetings and where we were able to talk. We didn't do the empathy circle, but we did talk about, the issues. And communication is key. So if you have the empathy circle practice sort of, as part of your routine, that helps you make better, more informed and effective decisions in the moment.
So you're talking about how in your team where you worked, where you did have to make quick snap decisions and take actions, you also had a lot of meetings where you could debrief and actually communicate about what had happened and all the ramifications. And you're saying that this communication is key to be able to operate as a team and in the line of fire.
Right. And what I see is that rather than putting up a person or a title as sort of like the leader, what I tried to do and I felt most effective was put up the goal. In my case, it was what's best for the students. And then we could agree on that pretty much. And then we can work effectively as a team because we all understood the goal and we were all committed to the goal rather than a person or a title.
And so you found in working in these stressful situations that what was helpful was not to have one person in charge who's going to make decisions and make things happen, but to have a goal that everybody agrees to and shares as a way to work well together.
Right. And so there are many times there are different ways to get to the goal. But so you could, so that helped us work cohesively as a team. Well, you did it, I suggested A, you suggested B, but we get to the same goal. No big deal. Let's try B and see how it works.
So working with a focus on the goal, there may be different strategies that you try. Some will be effective, some won't. But with the goal persists, and with the focus on the goal, you can be successful as a team. Right.
And then also talking about the way, and I don't know what my time is, but talking about the way that we're conditioned, then we can, a lot of times we're very intelligent, but we have emotional blocks and we don't look at our emotional blocks. And so therefore, this is a way, like with your younger son, of sort of easing and softening those emotional blocks so we can put the full weight of our intellect and our heart towards solving a problem. And then I'm done. Thanks.
So the way that we're conditioned is to kind of problem solve, but to not look at emotional blocks. And when we do look at emotional blocks and the empathy circles gives us a form to do that, then we can work better together because those emotional blocks aren't going to get in the way.
Right. And I'm just to make one real quick thing is that it sort of softens it. You don't address those emotional blocks directly, but it helps loosen our tight defense mechanisms. And then magic results. I'm done. Thanks.
So when people are accompanied and encouraged to share their emotional blocks, it's not about dealing with them directly, but the fact that they can be expressed softens people's interactions with each other, and the team can work a lot more effectively.
Thank you, Celine. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Bill. BJ, would you listen to me? I'm looking at the notes. I don't want to say something that's already been said. So BJ, I was struck by your mention of that young people need to sign up if this is going to become a movement, the empathy movement. I'll pause there. You're muted. I can't hear you.
I apologize. I think what I heard you say is that you were struck by the comment I made regarding how might we build the empathy movement. And I mentioned that young people would be an asset and that you were struck by that mentioning.
Yes, and we have had young people involved in empathy circles, and they're terrific. They're enthusiastic. They catch on really quickly. They learn the skills to facilitate easily also. I'll pause there.
I think what I heard you say is that there have been young people who have participated in the empathy circle training in the past, and that they were excited. They learned really quickly, and they were engaging, and they were exciting.
Yes. So how to encourage a committed participation in building an empathy movement? I don't know the answer to that. I think that could be the topic of an empathy circle that could be quite interesting.
What you said was building a community of empathy. The participant would need to be committed, and for a participant to be committed within the empathy circle culture, you don't really know what that might look like. And I think what I heard you say, that would be a great topic. A great topic would be how to keep those who participate committed to the process.
Yeah. I notice that I am interested in kind of slow communication much more than the young people I interact with. Mostly that's my sons. And for me, empathy is slow in some ways. So I feel totally helpless in terms of engaging younger people in the process. I mean, very much younger people. I'm pausing.
Okay, I think for you, you said it can be a little challenging in that, in your perspective, empathy should be slow. The process of being an empathetic listener should be slow, and that at times you feel helpless in engaging those who are younger.
So it's not that it should be slow, but that for me, because I'm old, it's slow. And I know people are so used to using apps that will make things go faster and instantaneous. Like my son just asked me to use Marco Polo with him so we can exchange videos right away. And I did. But it's like, what for? I'm not in a hurry.
I think what I heard you say is that you consider yourself to be a seasoned woman. And because of that, you feel your style of communication and what that might look like is a little different from your son, who is younger. And that recently he asked you to participate with him in an app called Marco Polo, where you were able to instantly share videos. And for you, you were able to do it, but you were thinking, I'm not in a hurry. It doesn't matter how quick I get the video. I'm good with whenever I get it, I think is what I heard you say.
Yeah. Oh, my time is up. Thank you very much, BJ.
Okay. All right, Valerie, will you be my listener?
Hi, Vijay, I'd be happy to. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing at the last comment that you made. Oh, I thought that was funny. Thank you. Okay, yes, I'm ready.
Okay. I think what I want to say, that was really good, Selena, and you're not old, you're seasoned. Okay, let's just make that very clear, because I think we're about the same age, maybe, so so what I'd like to say is that this process is so wonderful, and I just feel good every time I jump on. I just feel sad that I haven't been able to participate as much as I would like to.
So you just want to express that you're very thankful for these sessions and that you always benefit from them, and you're really appreciative every time you're able to jump on, but that you're sorry that you can't always participate as much.
Yes, it's just, there are so many facets to empathy listening circles, and it's not just I keep talking about work, I keep talking about family, but it just can never say enough where it might fit in at. Recently, I'll pause.
Okay, so there are various facets to empathy, so many that it really extends so far that it's very difficult to just point them all out. But that family and work are some of the areas, but empathy really is far-reaching in terms of like how it can be applied as you're seeing it.
Yes, even in domestic violence. In my work, I recently received a phone call from a lady who is a victim of domestic violence.
And even in domestic violence, where you recently received a phone call from a woman, it can apply there as well.
Yeah, she was seeking divorce from her husband, and that was domestic violence. And with the empathy listening circles, just being able to listen to her, even though the intake went over the time and things like that, just being able to listen to her. She said, "I feel so safe talking to you."
So what I'm hearing is that you're really feeling the full process of empathy you're sharing this one example with this woman who was in a domestic abusive situation where she reached out to you because she's wanting to get a divorce. And during the intake, even though it went overtime, that the process was so valuable to her that she actually said to you that she feels safe with you.
Right, and it just totally utilizing empathy listening.
And you're attributing this all to empathy, listening with empathy.
Absolutely, not so much conflict management as it is just really hearing what she was not saying. Not what she was saying, but hearing what she was not saying.
Mm-hmm. So there's this action-based way that I'm hearing that conflict management usually is taken care of. But what you're saying, I'm hearing, is that it really had to do with applying empathy in a way that you are picking up not on what's action-based, not on what's being said, and not sort of in that orientation, but in a subtler way, in the way that empathy picks up on what's not being said.
Absolutely. And just to go back to what Selena was talking about regarding the youth.
Okay, so sorry, I thought you were going to pause and say more. So you just want to reflect a little bit more on what Selena was saying about youth.
Absolutely. Working with the youth can be very interesting.
Working with youth can be very interesting.
Because not only is it, kind of exactly what Selena was saying, but it's just a generational thing also. Some youth don't even know what a beeper is.
So what you're saying is that it can be very interesting working with the youth because some youth don't even know what a beeper is.
Yes, because they weren't born. So it's just that generational thing, that learning style, how different generations learn.
Mm-hmm. It's a generational thing that you're appreciating the differences that, how youth need to be engaged with because they're really learning in a different environment, different context.
Yes, we have our Gen X, our Gen Z, our baby boomers. There are just so many different types of learning styles with each particular age group.
Mm-hmm. So each generation learned in a different way, given the technology that was available and given just the scholastic curriculums that were that they went through. And so all the different generations, whether it's Gen X or baby boomers or Gen Z or millennials, whatever it is, but they're all unique, they're all different. And so we empathy would apply in terms of engaging with them in this way and helping to facilitate and learning, teaching them is going to be different.
Absolutely. So if the millennials and the Gen Zs could come together regarding the empathy circles, I think it will be great.
So if the millennials and the Gen Z could come together, that would be wonderful.
I feel heard.
Thank you, BJ. Okay. Edwin, would you like to be my listener?
Mm-hmm. Listening.
Okay. I just wanted to add a couple of things to just what's been recently shared about the youth. And I just wanted to add that I I think I may have shared this before, but I think it's really important to, as adults, to not take ourselves off the grid, because the youth are going to be seen as off the grid pretty quickly when it comes to technology as well.
So regarding the topic of the youth, that we shouldn't, older people shouldn't take themselves off the grid, see themselves as off the grid, because the young are going to get older and be off the grid too eventually.
Yeah, technology moves so quickly that I don't know, I feel like I've lived, 4 or 5 lifetimes just in how quickly technology is shifted in the way that my society impacts me and how I am impacting society. It's just, it's like surfing on a high wave.
Yeah, so the technology is changing so fast that everybody has to be constantly adjusting and adapting to this technology, and the young are going to have to be doing it as well.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple of things that, in terms of modeling, I think that those people who have been on the planet for longer, I personally don't use the word older or younger because I think that takes us into a past future psychological state. But for those of us who have been on this earth for a longer period of time, that we can model how to live life. And it, to me, I don't see it as passing a baton, because we are alive until our very last breath. And I think that what sort of breaking up generations and things like that, what it does is it creates a divide, but it also sets us up for just an always divide between really numbers.
So you don't like to divide by age because it creates sort of these differences and these divisions. And you're seeing the way to engage people in the empathy movement is to model and to just sort of be in the present and model this to your last breath, I guess. Yeah,
because even though we're, raising children is incredibly important, focusing on how we're raising children is of the utmost importance. But part of that I see is modeling how to go through life.
So raising children is to really model how to go through life. So the modeling, you're just putting a real emphasis on the importance of modeling.
Yeah, because we're very youth obsessed. And the way I see it, youth only lasts a few Christmases and then it's over.
And, youth passes quickly. And so kind of this cultural, it's not like you're not supportive of this cultural obsession with youth because it just passes quickly.
Yeah, and I think that we have a dysfunctional relationship with the cycle of life that pits us in periods of decades, as if our individual experiences don't matter, that they are a stereotype of what a particular person in a particular decade at a particular number is supposed to be going through. And then we sort of just live a script, really.
Mm-hmm. So this having these ages and different ages, you're supposed to have different way of being. And you see that as like a constricting script. And so you're trying to find an alternative to that, maybe more in the present.
Yeah, because I think with empathy, what I've really found is that we all just want to be free. And I don't think there's ever been a period in my life where I've never wanted that. That's been sort of central theme in my life. And I see it in my father. I see it in people who are, just of any place on the spectrum of time, that freedom is central.
So you see that as sort of a core human desire or need is just to feel free, whatever age you are, everyone just wants to have a sense of freedom, maybe to be themselves, who they are in the moment.
Yeah. And although I really appreciated, for instance, what BJ was talking about in terms of the YouTubers, I think that's an excellent suggestion. Because I think, because being in the university and being an older student in the university, I can see this cross comparison in that they actually they're not necessarily appreciating social media. They use it, but they also see how it can be very injurious.
Mhm. So in the college where you're at, the younger, some students you're seeing that they use the technology, but they also see some of the negative, injurious qualities of it too.
Yeah, and so I think part of what we can exercise as a collective community is to sort of like, we're way back in, I don't know when, maybe 100 years ago or maybe even less, where we had generations living together, right? And there was less sort of divide. I think that we can impart the exercise of empathy on people in terms of how to be self-empathic and how to have empathy on others by really highlighting that we're not in a survival cycle of time where we need to divide everyone up into chunks. We're all living in the present moment. We're all here now. And how can we connect in that way?
So you'd like to, you don't want to like divide time, and people love all these different divisions, but really be in the here and now with all ages, with all types of people, and just be in the here and now. And that's sort of the direction you would like the qualities you would like to nurture. And that was the time too.
Thank you, Edwin.
Larry
I like
okay.
the way you said everything back to me. Thank you.
Okay,
That's really good.
Phil? You?
I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit. Are you picking
Yeah,
it?
to you, Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, listening.
Yeah, really thinking about the empathy movement. What is it that I think it was maybe Celine was saying about commitment, right? How do you have like a commitment to something? I mean, everybody here is very committed. I can feel sort of the commitment to this, and maybe part of the commitment is you just see all the benefits. Like, hey, this is really helping my mediation. It's helping me in so many situations. So that's one way people get commitment, is they just see how it positively impacts their life.
So thinking about how to build a culture of empathy, the word that came up to you was commitment, and why do people get committed? And the insight that you were kind of getting from this conversation was that people see the benefits. And so therefore, when they see the benefits, then that builds that commitment. Yeah,
and it wasn't so much the framing as the culture of empathy, which I think is, what I've sort of focused on, but an empathy movement. So a framing, hey, I'm part of this. How do we create like maybe an identity of I'm part of this empathy movement, Okay, so you want to make a distinction between a culture of empathy, which is a bit broader than the empathy movement. Yeah, there's been a lot of different social movements, everything from the women's movement to vote, civil rights, the LGBT movements. I mean, there's all these different movements. So there's sort of a concept of a movement out in society, and people sort of kind of get engaged in it. And how do we sort of create an empathy movement? How do we create a movement where people have sort of an identity or a commitment to this movement? So you were reflecting on historical movements such as the women's movement to vote, and also LGBTQI rights. And so then you're seeing that as, I guess, contrasting with a culture of empathy, it's more focused. And so therefore, how do we get a focused so that empathy becomes real and people are focused on empathy? Yeah, and one of those is, laying out the vision, mission, principles, and goals, and you have all that that's right, sort of being talked about and articulated. I think that is a big part of it. So part of it is really defining it, mission, vision, goals, values, things like that. And then I thought we needed a name, for like, there's a lot of people say I'm an empath, right? But the right, thing is empath, a lot of times means it's people that are overly sensitive. They feel like they can't sort of navigate in society. So it has a bit of a negative connotation, but I like the word. But so maybe we could be the new empaths who are grounded and strong and, present. And so create a new term, a new identity around like empath or something. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is that, to identify yourself as sort of an empath. And in the past, however, the empath has sort of meant overwhelmed, maybe fragile, things like that. But you're talking about a new empath, a robust, resilient, focused, take no prisoners empath.
That's in the right direction. So,
Not exactly. Okay.
but maybe there's a better term. I'm just throwing it out there because maybe people will have a better term, for it. But I'm just kind of looking for some kind of a sort of almost like an identity, a movement identity. And then I think the other part is too that it's a community of support that that you have a community that is supportive, for just being heard and for dealing with your needs, so that, it's like the empathy buddy, like you always have your empathy buddies and your empathy support group of, I get together with my friends and we just have an empathy circle to talk about, challenges or what's successes in life. So you just have that community aspect to it.
So you have two aspects there. One is a sort of a narrow or a strong definition of what an empath is, or maybe there's another term that would be better. And then the next, though, equally important, is to have a support group around that. So people get together, and empathy and empathic listening is sort of like an accepted and frequent practice.
Yeah, it's sort of like church groups have that aspect, right? Like my family, church was a big aspect. I think more for the community aspect is, where do you have your community, right? Where do you go do events together? Where do you, if you're having problems, you go to the pastor, the minister for, counseling, and that it's really a big part of it is just having your social community aspect and support. So that could be another aspect of a movement.
So you're making a parallel between, say, like an empathic community and also a church community, where you kind of meet like-minded people and you go out and you have events and things like that and gatherings. And then also when you need counseling, you go to like a church or pastor, or you go to an empathy buddy, maybe.
And that's my time. I just mentioned that after this, in about an hour and a half, we have the Interfaith Empathy Cafe that Leo and I are setting up. So everybody's welcome to that too. So
okay.
I feel fully heard. Thanks, Bill.
Sure. And so you just wanted to mention that, in kind of working with that, you have in an hour, you have the interfaith empathy circle kind of, and that's sort of paralleling. And so. Okay, great. Larry, would you listen to me?
Yes, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, well, a big thing for me is empathy in schools and teaching kids to listen empathically. I'll stop there.
So Bill, a big thing for you is empathy in schools and teaching the empathy process to kids.
Right. And so I feel it's like, again, in the school day, you don't have 2 hours, but you can teach the skills in the circle. Is very simple. And just 15 minutes a day in the morning, where kids would be listening to each other, I think would make a profound difference in schools, the violence in schools, and eventually, as they grow up, our culture.
So there's also this challenge of, you don't have a 2-hour block where you can do empathy circles, but you could, teach the skills, and just 15 minutes in the morning when kids are just getting together and talking with one another, they can practice these skills. And then the skills become something that is in place when a crisis occurs, something like that.
Well, yeah, as BJ alluded to, it would affect all areas of their lives. It could, they could take it home and be more effectively communicating with their family, with their peers. They could proactively solve problems on the playground rather than going to a teacher. And that not only that, and I'll stop there.
Yeah, and once they've developed these skills,
Yeah.
then they can generalize these skills. They can use these skills in every area of their life, their family life, their friends. They can practice this. It's not that they have to sit down for 2 hours, but everywhere they're going and being, like BJ was expressing, you can use these skills everywhere.
Right. And then in a larger, like there are other, empathic or social emotional development techniques, but that if kids could participate in a circle like this, even for a short amount of time, it would give them the experience of what empathy is. We talk about the difficulty of defining it. It would give them the experience, which would help them make empathy real for them, and then would help them access more involved or sophisticated therapies. I'll stop there.
So Bill, that the kids, when they learn empathy and practice empathy, this helps to develop them to go further into other therapeutic kinds of sounding movements.
Right. And just to give a quick experience that I had, I dealt with a very at-risk population. When you hear about students who do school shootings, a lot of, not all, but some of my students fit that profile. And I was wondering, with all of that, why didn't we have a school shooting? And the reason that I came up with was that we were constantly talking to the kids. They were constantly being heard. We were, constantly doing that. So it never developed the anger and whatever, never developed to the point where they acted out in that way.
So Bill, I hear you sharing that with the work you were doing in the schools, there never became one of these school shootings. And it easily could be that you were constantly communicating with the kids. You were constantly practicing the empathic process of listening for the kids. So maybe they never got to that explosion point of acting out violently that way. So the whole empathy circle could have been making that difference of preventing those extremely violent acts.
Thank you, Larry. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Bill. How are we doing on time, Evan?
I guess we could, you want to do one more round, Larry, and then we'll close. We have 15 minutes.
All right.
Or do you want to just open it up to, no, go ahead. Let's go ahead. Take your 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. Let's start the timer. Valerie, will you be my listener?
Yes, Larry.
Thank you, Valerie. I really enjoyed this circle. I've been jotting down my little notes here, and I think we're all of us touching on topics that are really essential for humanity to survive in peace. I'll stop there.
So you wanted to, sorry, I got so into what you were saying that I blanked out on what you were saying because I have more feeling of what you were saying rather than the words. Okay, let me see if I can get it. You were saying that the topics that we're talking about here in this particular session, you're very grateful for, that there's a variety, but they all actually have, deep resonance with empathy.
Yes, that our conversation is kind of rallying around what humanity needs to be able to survive in peace.
Right, so our conversation in this session is really rallying around how we can, as humanity, survive in peace.
Yes, and I agree that there have been so many cycles of war and what I call the amygdala hijack syndrome, where one triggering leads to another triggering, leads to another conflict, leads to another battle, leads to another war, and then repeats. And it's just one amygdala hijack after another. That was a lot, but
No, that's perfect. It's perfect. What I heard was that what you're seeing in these cycles is a physiological response, a trigger that you're referring to as amygdala hijack. That is the fight or flight aspect of our primitive part of our brain gets taken over. The rational aspect just is not accessible, and we are living in the survival cycle of amygdala hijack to amygdala hijack to amygdala hijack, and it just goes on and on and on in this cycle.
yes. Yes. And then there's a Byron Katie quote that comes to mind. I won't get it exactly, but Byron Katie says, we've been doing this over and over for thousands of years, and we're all waiting for just one who is willing to be in peace. And that one is you.
So you're reminded of a quote from Byron Katie that says something like that we've really been doing this cycling for so long, but at the same time we're waiting for someone to break that cycle. That person is you.
Yes, we've been waiting for the one who will turn violence into peace. And that one is each and every one of us, to no longer wait for someone else to do it.
So the one that we're waiting for, that one special one that we're waiting for is outside of us. But that one special one isn't someone outside. It's within us. We are each that one that can end this cycle of violence.
Thank you, Valerie. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. So maybe we just do a quick round. Any thoughts about today's take a circle? Maybe what is your top idea for building the empathy movement? What's the maybe I'll start. But yeah, what I appreciated was kind of laying out the vision, mission, goals, and principles. I think we're going to need that. We have a lot of that already with the culture of empathy, all the work we've done with the culture of empathy. So that's something I want to work on too, and something where people can take on projects, like grab a hold of some kind of a project too. I think some kind of a framework for that. So anyway, that's something that's alive with me. Celine, do you want to share any?
Well, I just want to add a few things that I wanted to say. One is that I think the huge message with empathic listening is you matter. And I think that's a precious message that we don't get enough of in our world. But a down thing I thought of is opposition to it required to turn something into a movement? Is that what kind of concretizes or solidifies something into a movement, that there's opposition to it? I don't know. This is something that could be researched. I just thought of that. That's all I have to say right now.
I'm going to write that down so that do we need to be in an opposition to something?
No. Is it that something comes towards the whatever is becoming a something, an opposition to it, that solidifies it and creates a movement like LGBTQ movement or something? Is that what brought people together into a movement, that there was opposition that they had to face. I don't know.
Okay.
Something to, I will look it up some more and see if I can find a way to learn.
So it's a bit like, hey, what solidifies a movement? Is it something that comes at you? It's like people saying, no, we don't want more empathy, that there's got to be some, and you're not really sure. So you're just wanting to kind of check it out, but kind of that might be something that kind of helps spark and gel the movement. And
Well, the
you just kind
idea
of
of
think,
what is a movement? How did it become a movement?
uh-huh.
Do things, like the love of daisies, probably won't become a movement.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right, made notes of that. Bill?
Well, again, it's sort of, for me, it was the appreciation of, to reflect back on Byron Katie, that each individual in this group has made in coming here and trying to kind of, change themselves. And then through the change in themselves, that has an effect, as Celine illustrated, on other people. And so that's what really focuses on me. And it also comes back to what Celine says, is that everyone matters. I matter, so I change myself. And then when people see that without dogma and judgment on the other, whatever that is, then they say, well, that sort of feels good. Maybe I should try it too. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Larry?
Yeah, I agree with everything we've all said. And it's like for each of us, the opportunity is when we get that amygdala hijack, when it's happening to us, are we willing to be still and remain in peace and let that amygdala hijack fade and recognize I no longer need to react violently. There is a peaceful way. There is another way that might not initially be clear to me, but I'm going to walk that peaceful way and find out.
And you're also holding those Ukraine empathy circles too, sort of a nuts and bolts, hosting that and getting the word out and inviting people to take part there too. So you got the philosophical values as well as the sort of the practical organizational parts. Okay, BJ.
What I can say is, to the world, you are one person, but to one person, you might be their world. And thank you, Ed, for clarifying the movement versus the culture of empathy. And I get it now. Celine, thank you so much. I really love what you said when you said you matter. That's it right there. You matter. With everything that is going on right now, that's what everyone needs to know, is that they matter. I really love that. You matter. Just to marinate on that for anyone that's going through anything, and where empathy can be in the forefront. You matter. I love that.
Yeah.
That should be the mantra and the motto. But the other thing I wanted to say is that when you were speaking, Ed, and you were talking about something else that empathy could be about, one of the things I thought about was it's empathy listening circles, ELC. But how about embrace listening, communicate? So again, to the world, you're one person. To one person, you might be the world. And I appreciate all of you guys.
Very beautiful. Thank you. Valerie.
Yeah, I think I will agree with all of what's been said. And I think Selena actually also, I will say that you matter in it, just encapsulated what I was trying to say in my last speaking turn, is everybody matters and we all impact each other. So if we see people being neglected because of their age or ostracization or whatever it is, that impacts us. We learn to expect that treatment upon ourselves and how we're treated by others as we go through time. And I think that yeah, you matter means everybody. And I think that is a really wonderful way to impart just on everyone why empathy is just simply important, not to any particular group or section of population, because we're all on this planet together, but it matters to everyone. And if it doesn't matter to one person, it can't matter to everybody, in the sense that we're all connected. And on that note, I just wanted to say, Larry, like how you were talking about amygdala hijack, the word physiological hijack is something that was on my mind as well. So as soon as you said that, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the central nervous system and how we can, in our world of sort of, neuroscience is becoming common parlance. And I think that we can talk about central nervous system because that's how we process the environment. And I think it's a key component in the conversation to just bring it in and, to open up the space for people to learn about their bodies and like what's happening inside the body when my hormones just flare up and I can't control my thoughts, and, and to empathize with this process in this space with each other when it's happening, and to honor each other. Like if you see it happening, to just like instantly create a space for that person and to be empathic with that person instead of reacting. I think that's a really takeaway for me today. Thank you.
Thank you. So I had taken notes in that document. Feel free to add any more notes about the meeting. If you go down to the very bottom of that page, there's the notes from the previous page too. So I hope to, sort of capture the insights. Also the video, I can put that into our program called Otter AI that does transcription. So I'm kind of harvesting, all the insights, and hopefully over time that those can be fleshed out into maybe some documents or articles or something like that. And the idea is that in the next session, next Saturday, we'll continue, just keep sort of iterating on this topic and seeing what sort of comes alive, and maybe sort of projects or areas that people are interested in sort of working on to sort of flesh out, or initiatives and so forth to take. We have the, let's see, we have Monday, Bill and Celine and Larry have the intro cafe to the training. And so that's the same time, the same URL, Zoom room, right? We're gonna use my Zoom.
Right.
And then after this session, actually in an hour, we have another empathy cafe on the interfaith. And then the big one is on the 24th. Has everybody signed up to be a facilitator on the COP Talk
25th.
one?
25th.
25th.
Monday, the 25th.
25th, right? Monday the 25th.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we got you. BJ, can you join us, or Valerie?
I'll try, but I'll be in Arizona. I'm not sure if I'll be
Oh, okay.
in flight or not at that time. But I'll try for sure.
I think I signed up for it, Edwin. If I didn't, feel free to add me because I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay. But you have all the info, so you can show up. It's the let me put the links in. I'm not handling the registration, so it's the other group, the COP Talk group, and so that's the links there is the so if you have it should have given you some kind of feedback, maybe an email message that you're registered through Eventbrite.
I think it probably did. I just don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because we don't know how many people are coming to that. The COP Talk, the Police to Peace group, they have a Zoom room for 300. So, we can, the more facilitators, the more participants we can handle. And Lisa, who's from that group, she has an email list of 22,000, police departments and so forth, and she's going to send it out to everybody. So we're just trying to get as many participants as possible. So
And facilitators.
What's that?
And facilitators.
Oh, and facilitators, yeah. Did everybody get my email to the development list? Just wondering if everybody's on that list. I sent it out last night.
I don't think I did. I don't know if I'm supposed to be on that list.
What
Yeah,
is
everybody.
that? What?
That was about the police ride-along that I did.
Oh, yeah.
That was interesting.
Okay, did you get that, Valerie?
I don't think so. I'm just looking right now. I don't see.
Okay, if you want to leave your email, I can add you to that list. Or actually, I think I've got your email from the registration. Oh, there it is. Okay, well, I'll add you to the list too, because that's where we do all the announcements. Okay, great. So I got to see your email. We've got an hour for anyone who's really needing more empathy circles. We're going to continue in an hour. So hope to see you there. Goodbye for now.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, Edwin, I just had a question for maybe you and Bill and Larry. I'm
Sure.
not sure. When was this particular empathy circle program started?
Which program is that?
Like this, what we're doing here? Like, when did you guys organize?
Well, I started this maybe about 11 years ago after Occupy Wall Street. I had set up an empathy tent in Berkeley. They call it the empathy for listening. And I was sort of seeing that, we needed some way of bringing the community together because there's a lot of antagonism with all the different people doing occupation there. But then the camp was closed down. But then I connected with the person she has a PhD in empathy. Actually said, oh, let's work together on developing some empathy stuff. And we got together and really kind of worked on developing the empathy circle practice. And I've sort of been doing it ever since. So that was the core of it. But the core idea was I thought we needed something where we had an encampment there at Occupy Wall Street in Berkeley of maybe 200-300 people. I had thought if we had small groups doing empathy circles throughout the camp, and then people kind of shifting to different groups, it would be a way of overcoming some of the conflicts and be teaching people how to do active listening or empathic listening. So that was kind of where the idea grew. And it comes out of, all the stuff I'd done with, studying Carl Rogers, Rosenberg, conflict mediation, World Cafe. If you're familiar with World Cafe, is small group discussion. So it's sort of taking all those things and kind of tweaking it into this structure. I've been working on it ever since. So is that kind of what you meant, like how it got started?
Yeah, just in case, because people sometimes ask, like, when did it start or where? Yeah, and so I have some background. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that somebody could hold a PhD in empathy. I didn't know that's something that was offered.
Yeah, there's several people I know that have that, in different aspects of.
Yeah, I'm actually, for my master's, I'm hoping to, she's on a sabbatical right now, but I emailed her and I'm hoping to get in with her, and she practices Zen Buddhism, and she really, like, her profile is all about the inner beauty of the human being and to create a better community and everything. And I'm like, wow, like this is exactly the kind of thing I'm into. So I'm always surprised when I see masters and PhDs in this very sort of area, because I almost get this impression that it doesn't have a place in academia. So I'm always surprised.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, we're working on the project Defining Empathy, and I'm working with two people that actually have PhDs in empathy. If you go to definingempathy.com, and one of them, Allison, just got a job to start a lab, an empathy lab at a university, back east somewhere. Can't remember which one it is. So it's definitely something that's sort of growing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, everybody. Good luck with continued empathy for the rest of today and in your lives generally. Until next time.
Okay, thanks. And if you want a t-shirt, BJ, just send me an email. We can work something out. I got 10 of them downstairs.
Yeah, just let me know how I can get you paid.
Okay, yeah.
You're running for so.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
Bye all.
Yeah.